Betrayed by the people who should have protected her, Jordan watches her own family destroy her life piece by piece, burning her work, stealing her freedom, and calling it love. But pain can either break you or sharpen you. As she fights to prove her sanity and expose the truth, this story becomes more than revenge. It's about survival, courage, and the cost of choosing truth over family.
At 9:47 this morning, a message from my husband appeared. It said, "Happy anniversary, my love. I am buried in work, but I cannot wait for tonight. Love you." I was in my office at the restaurant when a movement outside caught my eye. In that moment, my entire world shattered. I saw him standing there kissing a woman with brilliant red hair as if it were nothing. I leaped out of my chair to go to them, but a stranger blocked my path and said quietly, "Do not. The real story is about to begin." Thank you for listening. If this story connects with you, please comment with where you are from. This is a fictional tale, but its lessons are very real. Everything started on a gray Wednesday, February 14th, 2024, our second anniversary. I went to my restaurant, Rose's Kitchen, at 7:30 in the morning. I planned to cook a meal that would remind my husband of our love. My office was filled with the lovely aroma of yesterday's baking. I looked through the window at Carmen as she got ready for the lunch rush. The morning light filled the quiet dining room. My plan was to make saffron risotto, which was Jake's favorite dish. I made it for him when we first met 5 years ago. I was gathering the ingredients when my phone buzzed at 9:47. The text was from Jake. "Happy anniversary, my love. Work is crazy, but I am excited for tonight." He ended it with, "Love you." For a single moment, I felt a spark of hope. I thought maybe we could fix our recent troubles. As I began to write back, I saw something familiar. It was a navy blue coat and a posture I knew so well. I looked up and saw him at a corner table just 30 feet from me. I was frozen, watching him from inside my office. There was Jake at Rose's Kitchen, my own restaurant. This business was my entire life. He was in the one place he said he could not go. He had on the navy coat I gave him for Christmas. He seemed so at ease, with no idea I was there. He was also with someone. A woman with long red hair was sitting with him. She leaned close, placing a hand on his arm. Then she got up, moved to his side, and wrapped her arms around him. It was a long, deep kiss, not a simple hello. It was the kiss of a lover. He lifted his hand to her face, just like he used to do with me. My phone fell from my hand and clattered on the desk. The screen was still bright with his message about being busy at work. Time seemed to stop. My brain refused to believe what I was seeing. My thoughts scrambled, searching for any other reason. It could not be him. I was just tired and seeing things. Perhaps it was a strange kind of surprise. But I knew that coat. I knew how he stood. I knew the gentle way he held someone's face because he did it to me so many times. There was no doubt it was him. I was about to burst out of the room and make a scene. My hand was on the doorknob and my whole body shook with fury. When a hand gently touched my arm, I spun around, my heart racing. A woman I had not seen in 4 years was standing there. It was an old friend, Detective Sarah Morgan. She was wearing everyday clothes, but I saw her police badge on her belt. Her eyes were sharp, and her calm presence stopped my anger immediately. "Wait," she said. Her voice was quiet but strong. "Do not go out there, Zoe. Something much bigger is happening." Her grip was soft but firm enough to hold me back. I could only stare at her in complete shock. Tears ran down my face as my body trembled. "Sarah, what is happening? I do not get it," I was able to whisper. "I was just buying a coffee," she explained, looking toward the main dining area. "I visit here on my days off. I saw him enter about 20 minutes ago. I saw what happened, and then I saw you. I knew exactly what you were about to do." She squeezed my shoulder softly. "Zoe, if you confront him now, you will only warn him. You will miss your chance to find out what is really going on. Trust me, a man this bold is hiding more than just an affair." "I have to know," I whispered, my voice cracking. Sarah's expression softened. "Then you need to go home," she said. "Go home right now while he believes you are still here. Look at his desk, his computer, everything. Find your proof, take photos of it all, make copies, and then give me a call." She gave me her business card. "If you face him now, he will only deny it. He will make you think you are crazy and hide his tracks. Do not give him that chance." I glanced out the window one more time. Jake was standing up and leaving a $20 bill on the table. The woman had already left. Sarah was correct. A fight here would not help anything, but going home could give me the answers I desperately needed. "Okay," I said quietly. Sarah gave my shoulder another reassuring squeeze. "Be smart about this, Zoe. Stay safe and let me know what you find." The moment Jake left at 9:52, I grabbed my coat and purse. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold them. I did not even tell Carmen I was leaving. A pot was still cooking on the stove. I rushed out the back door, still wearing my apron, into the cold rain. The 12-minute drive to our house took me only 8. When I pulled up, Jake's car was not there. I unlocked the front door to our quiet, normal house, but I knew nothing would ever be normal again. I went straight to Jake's office at home. The door was slightly open. His desk was messy with papers. A divorce petition was right on top. It listed Jake Michael Carson as the person filing and me, Zoe Maria Martinez, as the other party. He had already filled it out and signed it in blue ink. The only blank was the space for my signature. Underneath that was an appraisal for Rose's Kitchen, valuing it at $2.8 million. I then saw a printed email from Marcus Brennan, dated November 3rd, 2023. It said, Jake, we can finalize the sale once you have her power of attorney. The $2.8 million offer is firm. Get her to sign before October 28th. The plan was to move the money into an offshore bank account. Another email from February 11th said the red-haired woman was responsible for the emotional side of the plan. At the very bottom, I found a printed text. The name of the sender made my blood run cold. It was from Maya, my own sister. The woman with the red hair was my sister. The date was February 14th, 2024. The time on the clock showed 2 in the afternoon. I had been sitting there for almost 3 hours, staring at those documents. I was trying to make sense of any part of this terrible situation. Jake was gone. His car was no longer in the driveway. He was still out with her. He was with Maya. In that quiet room, I realized I did not know my husband or my sister at all. The printed message seemed to mock me. I read it over and over, hoping it was a mistake, a different Maya. But the phone number was hers. Her profile photo was from our family Christmas. My younger sister, the one I took care of after our mother passed away, the one who used to get into my bed when she had a nightmare. I had to know everything. I needed to see how deep the betrayal went. I stood up and went back into Jake's office. His laptop was sitting on the desk. I had never touched it before. He always said it was for his job, full of boring things. And I had trusted him. I trusted every single word. My hands were steady now. Anger can clear your mind, burning away the shock and leaving behind a cold sense of purpose. I opened the laptop. A password request appeared on the screen. I typed in the password he used for everything, from our television service to our shared bank account. The password was 2022, the year we were married, the year he promised to love me for the rest of his life. The screen opened. I was inside. His desktop was organized with only a handful of folders. I went into his email account. There were thousands of messages. I looked through the subject lines until one caught my attention. It was from Marcus Brennan at Cascade Dining Group. I opened it. The email conversation started on October 10th, 2023. It said, Jake, as soon as you get power of attorney for Rose's Kitchen, we can finish this in 72 hours. The $2.8 million is waiting. Just be sure she signs without a problem. Another message from November 3rd, 2023 created a 90-day window. It instructed, make her feel weak enough to sign by then. Use what you can, emotional stress, a fake health problem. The red-haired contact will assist with that part. She has agreed to help. The red-haired contact, my heart was pounding inside my chest. I continued to scroll down. An email from January 22nd, 2024 read, your contact is confirmed. M is prepared to move forward. She will keep Zoe busy and confused. After the papers are signed, you transfer the business to us. Then we will wire the $2.8 million to your account in the Cayman Islands, number 847392. Then you can have a new beginning with M in Seattle. Maya's table is scheduled to open in the third quarter of 2024. Congratulations. The words became a blur. Maya's table. They were going to give my sister a restaurant using my name. It was the dream Jake and I had created together. We talked about it during our honeymoon. My cookbooks were full of sketches for it. He was giving her my dream. He was taking my entire life away from me. I clicked on the personal folder. A folder inside was named M. I opened it and dozens of photos popped up. They were pictures of Jake and Maya in Seattle. They were at Cannon Beach, the same place where he had proposed to me 3 years earlier. In one picture, her hand was on his chest while he kissed her neck. The dates on the photos went back 18 months, a full year and a half. Their affair had been going on for that long. The lies felt like they were choking me. I opened his text messages. His conversation with Maya was at the very top. The messages were from last night. It was February 13th, 2024 at 11:47 in the evening. Maya wrote, tomorrow is your anniversary with her. Can you really do this? Jake replied, Do not worry, my love. I will send a nice message tomorrow to keep her calm. Everything will be done by October. Then it is only us, Maya's table, and our baby. That is our future, Maya answered. I want our baby soon, Jake. Promise me. Jake's final text read, I promise, my love, very soon. I shut the laptop with a loud bang that shook the desk. My hands were not shaking from grief. They were shaking with pure anger. The pain of their betrayal felt like my bones were breaking. My sister wanted a child with my husband. Maya wanted to steal the life I believed was mine. Jake was deceiving both of us. He promised a future with me while planning to steal my family's business. He offered her a life that was founded on lies. Then a line from Marcus Brennan's email came back to me. Make sure she is weak enough to sign, emotional problems, sickness, whatever is necessary. Sickness. I had been feeling unwell since November. The nausea, the exhaustion, the stabbing stomach pains every morning, I had blamed it on stress from managing the restaurant. But what if it was something else entirely? What if Jake was making me ill? My stomach knotted with pain. I rushed to the bathroom, making it to the toilet just in time as a burning feeling came up my throat. I was shaking and crying when I looked up and saw it. Jake's travel bag for toiletries was on the counter. Beside his razor was a little dark bottle. My hand trembled as I picked it up. The label said Ipecac syrup to be used to cause vomiting after poisoning. It expired in March of 2025. The bottle was half empty. My mind spun as I stared at the bottle. Ipecac. This was the reason I had been so sick. Jake was giving me poison. It was not enough to kill me, but just enough to make me feel weak and disoriented. He needed me so exhausted that I would sign anything he wanted. Make sure she is weak enough to sign. I could not believe it. I took the bottle to the office and opened the laptop again. I checked his search history. And there it was. Searches from 3 months prior. How to make a person sick without getting discovered. Oregon power of attorney laws. Can a forced business sale be undone? He had planned the entire thing. He had considered every last detail. And Maya, my own sister, was helping him. I do not know how long I sat there. The shattered parts of my world were finally connecting, each one bringing more pain. But when I eventually shut the laptop and stood up to look at the rain, my tears were gone. My hands were still. I felt a sharp, icy clarity. Jake and Maya believe they can steal my life. They are completely mistaken. I could finally see everything clearly. My grandmother Rosa always said that knowledge is your most powerful weapon. It was time for me to learn how to use it. The first step was to get proof of what Jake put in my coffee. I needed proof that could not be denied. It was Thursday, February 15th, 2024. The time was a little past 6:30 in the morning and I was in our kitchen. I had not slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of that small brown bottle appeared. Half of the Epicac syrup was gone. As I lay in the darkness and heard Jake's steady breathing, I imagined him smiling each morning while he poisoned my coffee. He came home late, sometime after 11 o'clock. I heard his keys and then his soft footsteps on the stairs. I pretended to be asleep, keeping my eyes shut and my breathing even. He got into bed like it was any other night, not like a man who was with my sister plotting to ruin me. I wanted to yell at him. I wanted to throw the bottle at him and ask him why, but I did not move a muscle. I had to be smarter to win. I needed real evidence. So I got out of bed when the alarm went off at 6:30. I went through my normal morning routine. I brushed my teeth, put my hair up, and wore an old Portland Trail Blazers sweatshirt. I went to the kitchen acting like it was a normal Thursday. Jake was there in his gray shirt and sweatpants, waiting for the coffee to finish brewing. He turned and gave me the same lovely smile that I fell in love with 5 years ago. Good morning, my dear, he said, acting like he was not destroying my world. Good morning, I replied with a steady voice. I remained in the doorway with my arms folded, just watching him. He took 2 mugs from the cabinet. They were the ones from the Hood River Farmers Market that had small strawberries on them. He poured coffee into both, and steam rose from the mugs. Then he went to the fridge for my almond milk. As he did this, his free hand reached into his sweatpants pocket. The movement was fast, just enough to get a small item. It was the little brown bottle I found. My stomach clenched, but I stayed still. I kept my face blank and watched. He unscrewed the cap and held the bottle over my mug. 2 clear drops fell into the coffee. He screwed the cap back on, returned the bottle to his pocket, and took out the milk as if nothing happened. The entire action was over in less than 5 seconds. If I had blinked, I would not have seen it. He stirred both coffees with a spoon, the spoon making a soft clinking sound. Then he brought my cup to me with that same relaxed smile. Here you are, my love, with extra almond milk, the way you prefer it. I took the mug from him, my fingers brushing against his. My hands did not shake at all. I would not allow them to. Thank you, I said. I lifted the mug to my lips and pretended to take a sip. I immediately smelled something wrong. The coffee was strong and bitter, but there was a different smell mixed in. It was the smell of chemicals. Something was terribly off. I only let the coffee touch my tongue for a moment, then I set the mug down. It is perfect, I said, which was a lie. Jake leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee and staring at his phone. He was most likely texting Maya about their next move. I watched him over the rim of my mug, faking sips as my heart grew cold. For 3 months, the man I married and loved had been poisoning me daily. I understood now that it started in November. I was overcome with a deep tiredness and a mysterious sickness. I would get sharp pains in my stomach at work, forcing me to double over, praying my employees would not see. I knew something was very wrong with my body. I thought it was stress, perhaps an ulcer or a persistent stomach bug. I went to the doctor 2 times. He ran tests but found nothing. He said it could be anxiety and advised me to rest. But it was Jake all along. He was deliberately making me ill so he could control me. Zoe, are you all right? Jake's voice interrupted my thoughts and I jumped. He was looking at me, his head tilted with fake concern. You look exhausted. I am fine, I replied. I just did not sleep well last night. You say that a lot lately, he observed, setting his mug on the counter. He walked over to me and gently pushed a stray piece of hair from my face. His touch made me feel sick. Perhaps you should stay home from work today. Carmen can handle the restaurant. You need to get some rest. More rest, so I would become weaker, so I would be easier for him to control. Maybe you are right, I answered, making myself smile. I will think about it. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. The kiss was gentle and loving, like the one from our wedding day. I love you, Zoe, he said softly. For just a second, his performance was so good I almost believed him. Almost. Then he took his keys from the counter and walked to the door. I have an early meeting. I will see you tonight. Okay, I said. Okay. The door closed behind him with a click. I stayed completely still until I heard the sound of his car pulling away. Then I moved quickly. I found a small glass jar in the cabinet and carefully poured my coffee inside, getting every drop. I sealed the lid tightly, cleaned the outside, and buried it in my handbag. Next, I emptied Jake's remaining coffee down the drain, washed both mugs, and put them in the dishwasher. I gripped the counter for a moment to catch my breath. My hands were trembling now, not with fear, but with an intense anger. He had been doing this for 3 whole months, and I had no idea. He had deceived me completely. But my eyes were open now. I was going to get my evidence. I picked up my phone and looked for a medical lab close by. A name came up with 4.7 stars, Providence Medical Lab. It opened at 8 o'clock in the morning and was only a 20-minute drive. I sent a quick message to my manager, Carmen. Can you open the restaurant today? I have a doctor's appointment and will be in around noon. She answered right away. Of course, dear. Is everything okay? I looked at her text. Nothing was okay, but I was hoping it would be. Yes, I wrote back, just a regular checkup. I set my phone down, grabbed my purse with the hidden coffee sample, and left the house. I had to know if my husband Jake was poisoning me, and I needed to find out what he was using. I required absolute proof that would stand up in a court of law. This was not just about me. This was about Rose's kitchen, my grandmother's legacy that Jake and my sister Maya were trying to steal. I would not let them win. On Friday, February 16th, just after 10:15 in the morning, I pulled into the lot at Providence Medical Lab in Portland. For 5 minutes, I just sat there with the car off, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I stared at the glass doors, afraid to go inside. In my purse was a paper bag containing a small jar of yesterday's coffee. It was the same coffee Jake had made for me, the one I saw him put something in. I had told my friend Carmen I was just running an errand. I said I was meeting a new supplier for the restaurant. She did not ask any questions. Carmen was never the type to pry into my business. She just told me to take my time. I was so relieved that she believed me. I had not slept at all the night before. I just laid in bed beside Jake, listening to him breathe so calmly. I could not understand how he could sleep so peacefully after betraying me, how he could plot with my own sister to destroy my life, how he could spend 3 months carefully putting poison in my coffee every morning. He made coffee for me this morning just like every other day. He followed the same routine, offered the same loving smile, and gave me the same kiss goodbye before he left. I did not drink a single drop. As soon as he was out the door, I poured it all away. And for the first time in weeks, I did not feel sick by 9 o'clock. My stomach was not cramping. I was not dizzy. I felt perfectly fine. In that moment, the truth was crystal clear. It was the coffee. It had always been the coffee. I grabbed my purse, took a long, deep breath, and got out of the car. The air was damp and cold, a typical February day in Portland. It was the kind of chill that gets right into your bones. I walked across the parking lot, passed through the automatic doors, and entered the waiting area. The place was sterile and smelled like a mix of bleach and some lavender air freshener that made my stomach turn. A woman behind a glass window smiled at me. "Good morning. How can I assist you?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "I have a question about getting a toxicology test on a liquid." Her smile faded just a little. "Please hold on for one moment." She made a short, quiet call, then looked back at me. "Dr. Bennett can see you in a few minutes. Please take a seat." I picked a hard plastic chair near the window and held my purse tightly on my lap. The jar of coffee felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Other people were in the room. An elderly man leaned on a cane. A young woman scrolled through her phone. A mother tried to calm her fussy baby. They were all just normal people with normal problems. I wondered if any of them were here because their husband was trying to kill them. I was pretty sure I was the only one. After about 10 minutes that felt like a lifetime, a door swung open. A woman wearing a white lab coat stepped out. She appeared to be in her early 40s with dark hair pulled back in a bun and very kind eyes. "Zoe Martinez," she called out. I stood up from my chair. "That is me." "I am Dr. Rachel Bennett," she said, offering a firm handshake. "Please follow me." I walked with her down a long hallway and into a small office. She gestured for me to have a seat, closed the door, and then sat behind her desk. "So," she started, her voice gentle, "the receptionist mentioned you had a question about a toxicology screen for a liquid. Can you tell me a little more?" I took the jar out of my purse and set it on her desk. A dark, oily film had collected on the surface of the coffee. "I need to know everything that is in here," I said. "Anything that should not be, like a poison, a drug, or some other chemical." Dr. Bennett lifted the jar, holding it up to the light to examine it. "And can you tell me where this sample came from?" she asked. I hesitated for a second. "My husband prepared it for me yesterday morning." Our eyes locked, and the room was filled with a heavy silence. "And you are concerned because I have been incredibly sick," I blurted out, the words rushing from me. "For the last 3 months, I have been dealing with constant nausea, vomiting, and awful stomach pain. My own doctor did tests but could not figure out what was wrong. But yesterday, I did not drink his coffee, and today I feel completely fine. I have zero symptoms." Dr. Bennett set the jar down. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held a look of serious concern. "Zoe, I have to ask, are you safe in your home?" The question just hung there between us. "Not anymore," I whispered. "But I cannot do anything until I have proof, real solid proof. That is why I am here." She nodded her head slowly, her gaze never leaving my face. "I understand. We can run a comprehensive toxicology panel on this sample. It will test for all common poisons, prescription medications, and a wide range of chemical compounds." "How long will that take?" 72 hours, she answered. "We will call you the moment we have the results." "And can this be used in a legal case?" "Yes, if you decide to take legal action, our lab is fully certified. Our reports are admissible as evidence in court." She paused for a moment. "Zoe, if you believe you are in immediate danger—" "I am not," I said quickly. "Not right now. He has no idea that I am on to him. And I need to keep it that way until I have everything I need to stop him for good." Dr. Bennett studied me for a second and then gave a small nod. "Understood. The cost of the test is $127.50. We can bill your insurance if you—" "No," I said, taking out my wallet. I had an old credit card from my mother that I kept for emergencies. "I will pay with this. Please do not send anything to my insurance." She did not ask why I made the request. She just ran the payment and handed me a receipt. She promised they would call on Monday afternoon. She also said I should call 911 or her personal number if I started to feel unsafe. She handed me her business card. I put the card and the receipt in my purse. I gave her my heartfelt thanks. As she led me to the door, she put a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Please take care of yourself, Zoe." Once I was back in my car, the cold air felt sharp against my skin. I sat there for a minute, my hands shaking. The first step was done. In 3 days, I would know for sure what Jake had been adding to my coffee. Once I had that proof, I could plan my next move. I started the engine and drove toward Rose's kitchen. On the way there, a thought struck me. I felt so much better. My head was clear, my stomach felt settled, the headache was gone. I felt like my old self for the first time in months. That realization was almost as scary as the poison itself. It proved that Jake's horrible plan had been working. He was slowly destroying me, one cup at a time, and I never even suspected. But now I knew the truth. 72 hours. I just had to survive for 72 hours to find out if my own husband was trying to murder me. Then I would finally know how to end this nightmare. It was now Monday, the 19th of February, and I was at Rose's kitchen. I was in the middle of preparing for the dinner service when I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I wiped my hands on my apron and looked at the screen. It was a Portland number I did not recognize. A knot of pure dread formed in my stomach. I stepped into the back office to take the call. Hello? Zoe, this is Dr. Rachel Bennett from the Providence Medical Lab. Her voice was professional, but I could detect a sense of urgency underneath. Are you able to come to the clinic right now? I have your results, and I think it is best if we discuss them face to face. My stomach dropped to the floor. Did you find something in the coffee? Yes, she said gently. And I think you need to see this for yourself as soon as possible. I told Carmen I needed to leave for about an hour. I grabbed my purse and was on the road before the reality of the situation fully hit me. The 12-minute drive felt like it lasted for hours. My hands were clamped to the steering wheel as my mind raced with possibilities. They found something. I finally had my proof. When I got to the lab, my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. Dr. Bennett met me in the same office we had used before. She was standing when I walked in, pointed to the chair, and then closed the door securely behind me. A simple manila folder was sitting on her desk. She sat down, opened it, and slid a single sheet of paper across the desk to me. Zoe, she said softly, the results came in this morning. I waited to call you because I had our team run the test a second time. This is a very serious matter. I looked down at the document in front of me. The lab report was filled with technical terms I did not understand, but one line was highlighted in bright yellow. Ipecac syrup detected, 15 milliliters in a 250 milliliter sample. My vision blurred for a second. I had to blink several times to focus. Ipecac, I whispered, my voice a faint rasp. That is the stuff that makes you vomit, isn't it? Dr. Bennett nodded. That is correct. It is used to induce vomiting in cases of poisoning. It is not used very often anymore because it can be quite dangerous. She went on to explain that a small daily dose in a cup of coffee would not kill a person right away. It would instead cause chronic sickness, vomiting, fatigue, and severe stomach pains. I finally looked up at her. For how long could this go on? She answered, if you drank this every single day for several months, it could lead to some very severe long-term health problems. The doctor continued, listing all the possible damage: dehydration, muscle weakness, and permanent damage to my digestive tract. She paused, then looked directly into my eyes. Zoe, someone has been deliberately poisoning you. And based on what you told me, this has likely been going on for at least 3 months. The office seemed to tilt sideways. I put a hand on the desk to steady myself. 3 months. The illness had started back in November. The constant exhaustion, the body aches. I had told myself it was just stress. I thought it was all in my head. But it was Jake. For 3 long months, he had smiled at me, kissed me, and served me a cup of coffee every morning, all while he was secretly trying to destroy me. Dr. Bennett spoke with a gentle but firm voice. Zoe, you have to report this to the police now. What happened to you is a crime. The man who did this is guilty of assault and maybe even trying to kill you. You are in danger. I just shook my head. No, I am not able to do that. She looked confused. Why can you not? Because this is not enough evidence, I explained, pointing to the report. I have to find out his entire plan. If I go to the police now, he will just say it is not true. He will claim I am crazy or that I poisoned myself just to blame him. He is very smart. He has a lot of money and many lawyers. He is already working to take everything that is mine. Dr. Bennett's face grew serious. Zoe, if he is poisoning you, he might become even more dangerous. I know that, I said, my voice steady. But I stopped drinking his coffee 4 days ago. He does not know that I have found out, I added. I need to use this secret to get all the proof I need to stop him for good. She stared at me for a long moment, then slowly nodded her head. All right, but I need you to promise me something. If you feel that you are in any kind of danger, you must call 911 or call me. She pulled out a card and wrote a number on the back of it. This is my private cell phone number. You can call me at any time. I took the card from her, folded up the report, and put them both inside my purse. Thank you so much, Dr. Bennett, for all of your help. As I was leaving, she put a hand on my shoulder. Please be very careful, Zoe, she urged me. I walked out to my car, the truth inside my purse feeling as heavy as a large stone. This was the solid proof of what Jake had been doing all along. It proved that he was making me sick and weak, hoping that I would just sign over Rose's kitchen to him. Make sure she is weak enough to sign the papers. That was the exact line from the email sent by Marcus Brennan, and that is exactly what Jake did. He poisoned me. Every single morning for 3 months, he looked directly into my eyes as he handed me a cup of poison. I just sat in my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. The anger that I had been holding inside me for 5 days now was turning into a cold, hard resolve. Jake believes he is the one in charge. He thinks he has already won the battle, but he is very wrong because I now have proof. I have real, documented, lab confirmed proof, and that simple fact changes this entire situation. I started the engine, my mind already thinking about what I would do next. Jake does not only want the restaurant, he wants to be completely rid of me. And my own sister Maya is helping him do it, but they have both made a huge mistake. They completely underestimated my strength. They believed I was too sick and too broken to ever fight back. They never imagined that I would find the bottle he was using. They never guessed that I would get the coffee tested. And they definitely never thought that I had a secret weapon of my own, but I do have one. My grandmother made sure that I would. Abuela Rosa left me much more than just her restaurant. She left me something else entirely. It is something that Jake and Maya and Marcus Brennan have no idea about. It is something I have not touched in 5 full years, not since the day she first gave it to me, but I think that now is the right time to finally use it. Jake did his best to make me weak. He tried his best to break my spirit, but he is about to learn that I am the one who holds all the power now. By the time he figures out what is really happening, it will be far too late for him. It is Tuesday evening, February 20th, just after 7 o'clock. I am standing in the doorway of my Abuela Rosa's old bedroom. She passed on 5 years ago, and I have barely stepped inside this room since then. The house is perfectly quiet. Jake sent me a text message about an hour ago saying he was working late, which I know means he is probably with Maya. I do not even care anymore. Let him continue to make his situation worse. I came here tonight to feel safe, to be in a place that made me think of her. I can still smell the light scent of her perfume, Chanel No. 5. It was the only small luxury she ever bought for herself. The walls in here are covered with old photographs. There is one picture of Rose's kitchen when it was still just a little shop on Division Street. There is my abuela in her work apron with a small smudge of flour on her cheek smiling at the camera. And there is another photo of me when I was a little girl, sitting on a stool right beside her as she taught me how to knead dough. I miss her so much that it feels like a physical pain. I really wish she were here right now to tell me what I should do. She always knew the right path to take. I walked over to the old wooden dresser that she had found at a garage sale back in 1979. She had carefully refinished the whole thing by hand. Sitting right on top in a special place of honor is her recipe book. This is not the version they used to sell at the restaurant. This one is her personal journal, covered in leather, now 45 years old. The cover felt so soft and worn down from all the years she had held it. Inside, her lovely flowing handwriting filled up every page with all of her famous recipes. Mole negro, tamales oaxaqueños. I had looked through this book many times before, but I was never able to cook from it. It always seemed too final, like I would be saying goodbye to her all over again. But tonight, I reached out for it. I am not really sure why I did. Maybe I just needed to feel close to her. Maybe I just needed a reminder that I come from a family of very strong women. I carefully lifted the book and sat down on the bed. The leather spine was cracked in places and a few of the stitches were coming loose. As I was holding it, a corner of the cover got caught on my sleeve and I heard a small ripping sound. My heart sank. Oh no, please do not let it be broken. I looked at it more closely. The leather on the inside of the cover had peeled back, revealing something hidden underneath. It was not cardboard like I had always thought. It was paper. I put the book on my lap and very gently pulled back more of the torn leather. And there, hidden away inside a secret pocket, were 3 pieces of folded paper. My hands were trembling as I pulled them out. The first one was a letter written in blue ink in my abuela's own handwriting. I unfolded it carefully, smoothed out all the creases, and started to read. My dearest granddaughter Zoe, if you are reading this, it must mean that I have passed away. It also means that someone has betrayed you. I always had a fear that this day might come. Your grandfather and I poured our entire lives into creating Rose's Kitchen, but our success created a problem. I know that doing well can make other people very jealous and even dangerous. So I created a plan to keep you safe after I was gone. I have set up a trust fund just for you, my dear, worth $850,000. The account is at Wells Fargo Bank under my own name. It is being managed by my lawyer, Benjamin Hartley. He has been a dear friend for 40 years and I trust him with my life. The fund has one very important condition. You can only get the money with proof that someone is trying to steal Rose's kitchen away from you. If you are reading this letter, I am sure you now have that proof. You need to contact Benjamin, show him everything that you have found. He will assist you in getting the money. Use that money to protect yourself and to save our restaurant. This is your safety net now, Zoe. Please be smart when you use it. My love for you will be with you always. Abuela Rosa. The words on the page started to get blurry. Warm tears began to roll down my cheeks, and I did not bother to wipe them away. She had known something like this might happen. She knew that I might need help, and she made a plan to be sure that I would have it. Even after all this time has passed, she is still watching out for me. I dried my eyes and then looked at the next piece of paper she had left for me. The first paper was an official certificate from Wells Fargo Bank, created a decade ago in January of 2015. It gave the details of the Rosa Martinez Family Trust Fund and its starting value of $850,000. The next paper was a business card for a lawyer named Benjamin Hartley. His phone number was printed just below his name. I sat there for a very long time, holding her letter and the certificate in my hands. $850,000. That was more than enough money to hire the best lawyers in all of Portland. It was enough to fight against Jake and Marcus Brennan. It was enough to save my grandmother's dream. But it also showed that she had trusted me to protect her life's work. She knew that I would never give up. I folded her letter carefully and put it back inside the book with the other papers. I stood up and walked over to the window, looking down at the street below. The city lights were starting to turn on, making long shadows stretch across the sidewalk. Somewhere out there in the city, Jake was with Maya, thinking that he had already won. He believes that I am too broken and too scared to even try to fight him. He is completely wrong. My grandmother gave me the tools I need to protect myself. Now it is time for me to use them. In the morning, I am going to call Benjamin Hartley. I will show him the lab report, the emails, and the fake signatures. I will explain everything to him. Then I will get the money from the trust fund, and my real fight will finally begin. It was Wednesday, February 21st, a little after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when I walked into the law office of Hartley and Associates on 3rd Avenue. The office was in an old brick building from before the war, with very high ceilings and beautiful molding. The air inside smelled of old leather-bound books and wood polish. A receptionist with silver hair gave me a warm and welcoming smile. "You must be Zoe Martinez. Mr. Hartley is expecting you." She led me down a long hallway decorated with framed diplomas and old photos of Portland. My heart was beating fast. I had made the phone call that morning, and my voice had been shaking. "My name is Zoe Martinez. My grandmother, Rosa Martinez, told me to get in touch with Benjamin Hartley. This is extremely urgent." An appointment was made for 3 o'clock that same afternoon. And so here I was, with a large envelope in my purse that held my grandmother's letter, the report, and every single document. The receptionist stopped at a heavy oak door that had a brass plate on it. It read, "Benjamin Hartley, Esquire." She knocked on the door gently and then opened it. "Zoe Martinez is here." A strong, kind voice answered from inside, "Please send her in." When I walked into his office, he rose from his desk to greet me. Benjamin Hartley was just as I had pictured him. He was in his mid-60s with neatly styled silver hair, glasses with gold rims, and a classic gray suit that made him look dignified. He offered his hand. "Zoe," he said. The sound of my name was so gentle and familiar that a lump formed in my throat. "Please, sit down." I sat down in a leather armchair as he settled back into his. He placed his hands on the desk and looked at me with a kind, understanding expression. "You look so much like her," he said quietly. "Like Rosa. You have her eyes and her spirit." I fought to hold back tears. "Not here." "You must have known her for a very long time." 40 years, he said. "She came to me in 1984 when Rose's Kitchen was just beginning. We became good friends. She was one of the strongest people I ever knew. And she talked about you all the time. She was so proud." A sharp pain tightened in my chest. "She told you about the trust." "Yes, she did," he answered, his voice turning more serious. 10 years ago. It was her life savings from 30 years of work, $850,000. She made me promise to keep it secret, even from you, unless someone tried to steal the restaurant." I slowly nodded. "Someone is trying to." I took the large envelope out of my bag and laid it on his desk. Benjamin opened it and looked over every document inside. He began with my grandmother's letter, and I saw his face harden. He then read the report from Providence Medical Lab. His eyes widened when he saw the word Ipecac. He examined the forged divorce papers, then the emails from Marcus Brennan. He studied every word, his face growing darker with each page he turned. When he finished, he put the papers down and looked right at me. Zoe, he said, his voice was quiet but full of anger. This is so much more than fraud. This is attempted murder. I know, I whispered. That is why I am here. I need your help. Benjamin leaned forward. You have my help, and you have Rosa's help too. She was afraid someone would come after you and the restaurant. That is precisely why she created the trust with that one condition. It can only be used if there is proof someone tried to take Rose's kitchen. He pointed at the papers. And this is all the proof you need. It is solid, detailed, and cannot be challenged. A deep sense of relief washed over me. So the money is available? Yes, he said, but we have to act fast. This afternoon, I am filing an emergency request with the Multnomah County Court. We are asking for three things. First, an order to freeze all marital property, which includes the restaurant. That will prevent Jake from selling it. Second, we will ask for the trust to be released immediately, which will give you the money you need. And third, we are demanding a criminal investigation into Jake Carson for forgery, fraud, and poisoning. My heart began to pound. How long will that take? With an emergency request and evidence this strong, a judge could rule in 48 hours. If it is approved, Jake will be blocked from the restaurant and you will get the full $850,000. I breathed out, not realizing I had been holding my breath. What about the poisoning? Benjamin's face became very grim. That is a police matter. The court can start the investigation, but the police will need you to cooperate fully. Do you know anyone there I can call? I immediately thought of my high school friend, Detective Sarah Morgan. I had not called her yet, but now I had to. I do, I answered. Benjamin nodded. Good. As soon as this is filed, Jake will know something is wrong. He will get nervous. Scared people can do desperate things. You will need someone watching over you. I will call her, I promised him. He stood up and I did as well. He came around the desk and put a gentle hand on my shoulder just as my grandmother would have. Rosa loved you more than anything, Zoe. She would be so proud of you right now. The tears came again, and this time I let them flow. I miss her so much. I know, he said softly, but she is with you. She lives on in you, in her restaurant, and in this fight you are about to win. I left his office 1 hour later with a copy of the court papers. A hearing was set for Friday, February 23rd. As I walked to my car, the sun finally broke through the gray Portland sky. For the first time in a very long time, I felt hopeful. My grandmother had been looking out for me, even after she was gone. She had left me the tools I needed to fight, and with Benjamin's help, I was ready. But Jake was still a threat. He was a dangerous man who needed to be stopped. He had to be held responsible for what he did. I took out my phone and scrolled to the name I was looking for, Sarah Morgan. We had not spoken in a few months, but I knew if anyone could help me, it was her. I hit the call button. On Saturday morning, February 24th, just past 11 o'clock, I sat in a booth at Stumptown Coffee Roasters. I had ordered a black coffee. It was 10 days after Detective Sarah Morgan stopped me from confronting Jake and my sister at my restaurant. I was meeting her now because I had proof. The day before, a judge had granted Benjamin Hartley's emergency request. Jake was now legally forbidden from entering Rose's kitchen. The restraining order was in effect and my grandmother's trust was mine. But a court order was not justice. I needed Jake to go to jail. That is why I called Sarah. She walked in at 11:15. She was in jeans and a black leather jacket with her badge clipped to her belt. She navigated the crowded cafe with the same sharp focus she had 10 days before. She saw me immediately and slid into the seat across from me. Zoe, she said in a gentle voice. How are you holding up? I looked directly at her. I am holding up thanks to you. If you had not stopped me that day, I would have destroyed my case. Thank you, Sarah. She gave a small nod. I am glad I was there. Now show me what you have. I pushed a thick paper folder across the table to her. The truth was far worse than an affair. For 3 months, Jake had been poisoning me. He was scheming with a man named Marcus Brennan to take over my restaurant, and their plot went even deeper. I watched Sarah's face as she opened the folder. Her eyes widened as she read the toxicology report. Her jaw set as she read the emails between Jake and Marcus. Her expression grew colder with each document she examined. The first page was the lab results. It confirmed the coffee had 15 milliliters of Ipecac syrup. That dose is enough to cause constant nausea, vomiting, and severe fatigue. Sarah could only whisper, "Oh my word." How long was he doing this? She asked. For 3 months. From November to February, I said. He made my coffee every morning and added a dose of poison. I just assumed I was getting sick. The doctors could never find anything wrong. The entire time, Jake was making me weaker. He wanted me too tired to fight him when he tried to take everything. Sarah pointed to the emails between Jake and Marcus. I remembered the words that were burned into my brain. Make sure she is weak enough to sign. Another email said, the Ipecac is working. She is losing weight and has no energy. Their plan was to wire $2.8 million to an overseas account after I signed. She put the papers down, and her eyes were filled with fury. This is attempted murder, she stated flatly. Poisoning someone to get what you want is aggravated assault at the very least. This could definitely be seen as attempted murder, she said, tapping an email from Marcus. Marcus Brennan would be an accomplice. We are looking at conspiracy and financial crimes. They could both face a lot of prison time. That is not all, I said, handing her the fake divorce papers. I also gave her a business valuation for $2.8 million. Then I showed her the fake fertility clinic reports Jake gave my sister, Maya. He actually had a vasectomy 5 years ago. I also had photos of Jake and Maya at various hotels and restaurants. Sarah looked over every piece of evidence, writing things down. When she was done, she took a long, slow breath. In my 10 years as a detective, I have never seen a fraud and abuse case with this much proof, she said. We have lab results, emails, bank records, and pictures. Do you want me to go and arrest Jake right now? She asked. I shook my head. The evidence is good, but it is not a slam dunk, I told her. They found poison, but they cannot tie it directly to Jake. The emails prove Marcus was after my restaurant, but not that Jake made me sign anything. His lawyer would tear that apart in court. I leaned forward. I need solid proof. I need to catch him in the act on video or get a confession on tape. Sarah understood immediately. Then we lay a trap, she replied. You are going to put cameras in your house, focusing on the kitchen. In Oregon, you can legally record him without his consent in your own home. Your job is to make him talk. You have to ask the right questions so he lets his guard down and admits what he did. She glanced down at the file. And what about Marcus and your sister? My stomach turned just thinking about them. We put a tail on them. We get proof of every time they meet, Sarah stated. If you can record the three of them plotting, that proves a criminal conspiracy. Is that enough to put him away? I asked, needing to be sure. Sarah squeezed my hand, looking me straight in the eye. We are going to get him, Zoe, I promise, but you must be careful. If Jake suspects you know anything, he will get dangerous. He could panic and try something desperate. She took out a card and jotted a number on it. This is my personal cell, she explained. If you feel you are in danger or if he threatens you, call 911, then call me right after, no matter the hour. Do you understand? She asked firmly. I took the card and nodded. I understand. Thank you, Sarah, for all of this. She gave me a gentle, encouraging smile. You are much tougher than you think, but I am happy to help. She slid out of the booth, collecting her papers. I will start digging into Marcus Brennan and any financial links to Jake. You need to buy and install those cameras and record absolutely everything. When this is over, Jake Carson is going to prison for a long, long time. I stayed in the booth as she walked away, and for the first time since my life fell apart, I felt a small flicker of hope. It was Wednesday, February 28th, just before 10 at night. I sat on my bed staring at my laptop, reviewing spy camera footage. I had put it in place 4 days ago. The device was tiny, smaller than a tube of lipstick, and I had hidden it inside a photo frame on Jake's desk. The photo was of us on our wedding day, smiling like we had no cares in the world. I had paid $89 for it online with 2-day delivery. It captured both video and sound, uploading everything to a secure cloud server. Sarah's instructions were to record everything, so that is exactly what I did. Each night, once Jake was asleep, I would review the files from that day. I had to skip through hours of him just typing or making boring calls. It was mostly a waste of time. But tonight was different. I found it. The recording was from yesterday, February 27th, at 2:47 in the afternoon. At the time, I was at my restaurant, Rose's Kitchen, prepping for the evening rush. On the screen, Jake was alone in his office, holding his phone to his ear. I cranked up the volume. His words came through without any static. Rick, this is Jake Carson. We spoke at the contractors event a month ago. A moment of silence passed. I could just make out a man's voice replying. Oh yeah, I remember. What can I do for you? I have a project for you, something I need handled quietly, Jake said, relaxing in his chair. It is at a restaurant called Rose's Kitchen on 428 Southeast Hawthorne Boulevard. All right, the man on the phone said. What is the project? I need a gas line inspection, Jake answered, his tone perfectly normal. But I need a very particular result from this inspection, he went on. I need you to loosen one of the valves just a little bit, enough to create a slow, steady leak. It has to be subtle enough that nobody would notice it right away. A heavy pause hung in the air from the other end of the call. At last, the other man found his voice. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious, Jake replied, and I will pay you $5,000, cash, nothing on paper, no trail. This conversation never happened. There was another long silence. The man started to speak. If there is a gas leak and someone is in there, that is precisely the idea, Rick, Jake cut in. His voice was terrifyingly calm, as if he were discussing the weather. I need this to happen on the evening of October 28th around 8 o'clock. I will arrange for her to be in the kitchen by herself after the restaurant is closed. A chilling dread washed over me. Her? Rick questioned. Who is she? My wife, Jake answered, and I need to be certain she has no way to escape. I snapped the laptop closed. My hands were trembling so badly the machine nearly slipped from my grasp. I replayed the last 10 seconds of the video. I need to be certain she has no way to escape. I listened to it again and then a third time. Hearing those words felt like a physical blow. Jake was not just trying to take my business. He was actively plotting to murder me. He was hiring someone to cause a gas leak to blow up my restaurant while I was still inside. I forced my shaking finger to press play and listen to the rest. Rick's voice returned, hesitant and low. Man, I am not sure about this. That sounds incredibly risky, Rick said. If somebody dies, no one will connect it to you, Jake interrupted. It will be a horrible accident. Old building, faulty gas line, a tragic fire. The investigation will find nothing suspicious. My wife will be gone. I will play the grieving husband, inherit the restaurant, and sell it immediately. It is a neat, simple plan, and you get to keep $5,000. I need some time to think about it, Rick said at last. You have until March 15th to decide, Jake replied. The offer is off the table after that. The call disconnected. Jake set his phone on the desk, stretched casually, and resumed his work as if he had not just arranged my murder. I shut the laptop, plunging the room into darkness. October 28th. He had been planning this for 8 months. He shared my home, he kissed me goodnight, he acted like he loved me, all while orchestrating my death. A wave of nausea hit me. I rushed into the bathroom and threw cold water on my face. The person staring back from the mirror looked like a ghost. Her skin was pale and her eyes were hollow with pure fear. But beneath that terror, something else was stirring. It was a white-hot rage. For the last 3 months, Jake had been slowly poisoning me. He forged my name on legal papers. He conspired with Marcus Brennan to take the restaurant my grandmother left me. He was sleeping with my sister. And now this. He was trying to have me killed. He wanted me gone completely. He wanted to erase me from existence, to steal my life and begin a new one with Maya. My knuckles were white as I gripped the edge of the sink, struggling for air. No, I whispered to the face in the mirror. You will not get away with this. I walked back to the bedroom and flipped open the laptop. I instantly made 3 separate copies of the video. The first I transferred to my phone. The second I saved on a thumb drive that I tucked away in my purse. The third I emailed to a private account. Next I texted Sarah. I have it. We need to meet tomorrow. It is an emergency. Her response came back almost instantly. 7 a.m. at my office. What is going on? I hesitated, then wrote back, Jake hired a man to kill me. I have it all on video. I saw the dots indicating she was typing. Oh my God, Zoe, are you safe? Yes, I typed. He is asleep. I am okay. Lock your door. Do not let him get in. I will see you at 7, she wrote back. I stood up and confirmed the lock on my bedroom door was secure. I sat on the bed and played the recording one final time. October 28th. He had the date, the method, and the location all planned out. But he made one critical error. He was completely unaware that I was observing his every move. He did not know that I was capturing his every word on camera, and now I had everything I needed. This was the undeniable proof that Jake Carson had attempted to hire someone to murder me. In the morning, I would take it to Sarah, and our plan to stop him would begin. But tonight, I just sat in the quiet, listening to my husband's steady breathing. And I knew one thing for sure, the fear was gone. I am prepared. He thinks he has 8 more months to set his plan in motion. But my husband has no idea that I know everything. Before he even realizes what is happening, his life as he knows it will be over. It was now Tuesday, March 5th, just past 4 in the afternoon. I entered the office of Anderson Investigations on Southwest Morrison Street in downtown Portland. The air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and smoke, despite a no smoking sign. A man in his 50s with graying hair sat behind a desk piled high with papers. He looked up when the door opened. "You must be Zoe Martinez," he said. I confirmed that I was. "Tom Anderson," he introduced himself, rising to give my hand a solid shake. "Go ahead, sit down." I took the chair opposite his, my purse held tightly in my lap. I had retained Tom 5 days ago, right after I played the video for Sarah. The recording showed Jake offering Rick Donovan money to take my life. Detective Sarah started a formal case and told me to be patient, but patience was impossible. I needed to understand what Jake was doing. I also had to learn how involved my sister Maya truly was. That is why I hired Tom, a private investigator. My instructions were simple: follow them both and discover their secret plan. He pushed a thick manila folder toward me. "Your first update," he said. "I have followed them for 5 days. They are not even trying to hide it." I pulled the folder open. The first page was a summary, followed by a stack of photos. There were so many pictures. I saw Jake and Maya checking into the Marriott downtown hotel. I saw them holding hands at a small table at Clyde Common. I even saw them in a Fred Meyer parking lot sharing a passionate kiss. A cold sickness grew inside me, but I forced myself to look. "They meet 3 times a week," Tom explained. "It is always at the Marriott. It is always between 2 and 5 p.m. while you are working. They use the fake name Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, and Jake pays with cash each time." I nodded, my focus fixed on the images. "What else did you find?" "Your sister sees a fertility specialist," Tom said. "The Portland Fertility Center on Northeast Gleon. He trailed her there twice this week. Her appointments are on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 in the morning." I looked up, struggling to grasp his words. A fertility clinic. She was hoping to have a baby. Tom then showed me another photograph. This photo showed Maya leaving the clinic, holding a folder. He said she started going back in January. It seemed she was extremely serious about getting pregnant. A heavy weight pressed down on my chest. Maya and my husband Jake having a baby together. "Does she know that he is my husband?" I asked in a near whisper. Tom only shrugged. "It is tough to say for sure, but based on their behavior, I would guess she knows. They look like a couple who are planning their future." She talks about a restaurant she plans to open called Maya's Table. He also discusses their plan to move to Seattle. "You are the only person being kept in the dark." I closed my eyes for a moment and took a deep, shaky breath. "What about this picture?" Tom showed me the last photo. It pictured Jake and Maya at the coffee shop in Powell's City of Books. Jake was letting Maya read a document. A huge smile spread across her face as she read. "I took this photo yesterday," Tom said. "I was too far away to see the text, but it looked official. It might have been a medical document." I focused on the photo, a medical report. A new idea started to form. "Can I see that again?" Tom passed the picture back to me. I used my phone to magnify the image. The paper in Jake's hand had a logo at the top. It said Oregon Wellness Clinic. Below it, the patient's name was Jake Carson. The diagnosis was a low sperm count from a past injury. The suggested plan was testosterone therapy. The estimated date of completion was December 2024. I felt like my world stopped turning. "What did you find?" Tom asked. "I have to make a phone call," I replied, picking up my phone. I dialed Sarah's number and she answered on the first ring. "Zoe, is everything okay?" "I need to ask you a favor," I said. "I need you to review Jake's medical records. I must know if he ever got a vasectomy." A brief silence followed on the phone. "What makes you ask about that?" "Because I think he is lying to Maya. He presented her with a fake medical document about fertility treatment." "I have to know the truth." "Hold on a second," Sarah said. I could hear the sound of her keyboard. "Because this is a criminal case, I can access his records. Let me check." I waited, my heart pounding in my chest. Tom looked at me with a concerned face but did not speak. "Okay," Sarah said finally. "I have his file here. Jake Michael Carson, born April 12th, 1988. Oh my goodness, Zoe. What is it?" "He had a vasectomy," Sarah said, her voice slow and clear. "It was performed on August 15th, 2019. The procedure was at Oregon Health and Science University. The file notes that it is permanent and cannot be reversed." 2019. That was 3 full years before we got married. This entire lie started before I even met him. "Sarah," I said, my voice unsteady. "He told me he wasn't prepared for kids. He promised we would have that conversation later." "He was not being honest with you," Sarah replied gently. And if he presented your sister with a forged medical document about his fertility, then he is lying to her too, I said. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. Tom was still looking at me. Is something the matter? He had a vasectomy, I said to him. 5 years ago, he has been deceiving my sister and me this whole time. I powered on my laptop and navigated to the cloud drive where I stored my proof. I started to scan the text conversations I had saved from Jake's phone 2 weeks earlier. And then I saw it. It was a message Jake sent Marcus Brennan on February 25th. It said, "Just sell them on hope, my friend. Hope is a very useful tool. Zoe will stick around as long as she believes we are going to have a family. And Maya will do whatever I say if she believes she can have my child. It really is that simple." I looked at the words over and over. Tears began to cloud my vision. Jake did not love me. He did not love Maya. He was not capable of loving anyone. He had manipulated both of us with his lies. He gave us false hope to keep us near. He was making me ill so I would be too drained to prevent him from stealing Rose's kitchen. He was lying to Maya about a future together so she would assist him. His ultimate goal was to have me killed, sell the restaurant for a large sum, and then leave. My sister Maya was just another pawn in his sick game, just like I was. But she did not know it. I shut my laptop and looked at Tom. Can you keep following them? As long as you are paying, I will not take my eyes off them. Good, I said. I need you to document everything. I want pictures, audio recordings, locations, times, every single thing. I understand completely. I walked out of his office with the folder, feeling totally empty. Jake was only driven by greed, power, and the need to be in control. And Maya, my own sister, whose hair I once braided and to whom I read stories, was just another person for him to exploit. A part of me wanted to call her, to tell her she was being manipulated, but the other part, the one that pictured her with my husband, heard her plans for her own restaurant and knew she sent him texts about a baby that would never be. That part of me thought she needed to discover this for herself. Jake had played us both, but now I was the only one who knew the complete truth, and I was going to use that truth. 7.5 months had gone by since I had watched the video. It was 7 months since I played Detective Sarah Morgan, the recording of Jake planning my murder at Rose's kitchen. We spent 7 months carefully making our plan. After I brought Sarah the evidence in March, we laid out our strategy. Sarah's first instinct was to arrest Jake, but I talked her into waiting. A quick arrest would allow him to hire an attorney and say it was just talk. Instead, we could wait for him to think his plan had worked, and then we would catch him in the act. Charges of conspiracy and attempted murder would make sure he was caught, so we waited. Sarah got to work and secured all the warrants she needed. She found Rick Donovan and met with him privately. He told her about the entire plan. Jake had given him $5,000 in cash to damage the gas line at my restaurant. Rick's only job was to create the leak 3 days before October 28th and then disappear. Jake's vision was that I would be alone in the kitchen. Gas would quietly seep into the room. The second I lit the stove, the restaurant would explode. It would look like a horrible, tragic accident. The grieving widow then sells the business and leaves town with the money. But I was aware of his entire evil plan. Now, with his deadline only 3 days away, it was my time to act. On Friday, October 25th, just after 2 in the afternoon, I stood in my kitchen with my phone. Oregon Natural Gas, this is Brenda speaking. How can I help you? I made my voice sound calm and said, "Hello, my name is Zoe from Rose's Kitchen. I think there might be a gas leak. I have smelled something by the stove for a few days." "Okay, ma'am. We treat these calls with extreme urgency. I am sending a technician to you right away. Can you please confirm the address?" 428 Southeast Hawthorne Boulevard in Portland. That is correct. We will have a person on site within 60 minutes. Please do not light any matches or use a lighter. If the smell gets any stronger, you need to leave the building. I understand, thank you. After I hung up, I waited. About 50 minutes later, a white van from the gas company appeared. A man in a blue uniform and a hard hat emerged, holding his tools and a special detector. I walked to the entrance to greet him. "Hi, I am Zoe Martinez. I am the owner who called." "Eddie Parker," he said, shaking my hand. "Let us find out what is going on." I showed him to the kitchen, where he immediately started to use his equipment to check the stove area. After a moment, his face changed. "Ma'am, it is a very good thing you called us." He pointed to a brass piece on the gas pipe behind the stove. "Someone loosened this on purpose. It was not enough to leak right away, but the stove's heat would have made gas pour out. That could have caused a huge explosion." I felt sick to my stomach, but I kept my face perfectly still. "Can you fix it?" Yes, of course. I will tighten it now and then check your entire system. I will make certain everything is completely safe. For the next 20 minutes, he moved carefully, tightening connections, checking pipes, and using his detector on every single inch of the line. Finally, he straightened up. All right, you are all set. Everything is secure. I am not finding any leaks at all. But I have to ask you, do you know how that valve got so loose? That sort of thing does not just happen by itself. I took a long, careful breath. I am not sure. Maybe something just fell and bumped it. He gave me a skeptical look but did not push me for a different answer. Okay, well, everything is 100% safe now. He added, company rules say I have to file a report about this with the main office. Actually, I cut in, taking $500 in cash out of my wallet. I was hoping you could do me a favor. My husband is a big worrier. If he finds out I called the gas company, he will say I am being paranoid and we will have a massive fight. Is there any chance you could skip filing the report just this once? This is for your time and trouble. Eddie looked at the cash in my hand, then he looked back up at my face. Ma'am, company policy says I must report every single call. I understand that, I said, but the problem is fixed. Everything is safe. I would just really like to avoid a big argument with my husband. He thought about it for a second, then he took the money and put it in his pocket. All right, but you need to call us right away if you smell gas again. Do you understand? I will. Thank you very much. After he was gone, I locked the door and let out a huge breath. The first step was done. The gas line was safe. But Jake and Rick had no idea. They thought their deadly trap was all ready. Still, I needed my own protection. I had to have my own way to shut off the gas. I picked up my phone and made another call. Walsh Gas Consulting, this is David. Hello, David. My name is Zoe Martinez. I need a remote shut-off valve installed on a commercial gas line, and it has to happen today. Money is not an issue. My schedule is completely full today, but I think I can squeeze you in around 6 o'clock this evening. What is the address? Right at 6 o'clock, a simple work truck pulled up and David Walsh got out. He was an older man with gray hair wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. My friend Sarah had promised me he was reliable and private. I let him in the back door. Show me the gas line, was the only thing he said. I led him to the kitchen. He looked closely at the main valve, the fittings, and all the pipes. So, you want the remote valve installed on this section here? Yes, I need to be able to turn off the gas from anywhere, just with my phone. He gave me a very curious look. Are you having some kind of trouble here? Let us just say I need total control over what happens on my own property. He nodded his head slowly. I understand. I can put in a smart valve that connects to a cell phone signal. You will be able to control it with an app on your phone. The job will take about 2 hours. The total cost will be $1,200. Perfect. David worked quietly and with great focus. He placed a small valve behind the stove, connected it to a control box, and then linked the box to an application on my phone. When he was finished, he pulled out his own phone. Download this app, GasSafe Pro. I have already set up your valve with it. Do you see this button? I looked down and saw a big red button on the screen that said Emergency Shutoff. If you press that, the valve will slam shut. The gas will stop flowing completely. Your stove will not turn on. Nothing will work. And how do I switch it back on? You can push the green button, but it is much safer to turn it back on by hand at the valve. That is perfect. I paid him the $1,200 in cash. He took the money, gave me a quick nod, and left without another word. I stood by myself in the quiet kitchen, staring at the app. A single button gave me all the power. I had to see it work. I pressed the red button. I heard the sharp click of the valve shutting. I pressed the green button. It clicked open again. I did this 3 more times just to be sure. Then I went online and bought a handheld gas detector with 2-day shipping. I slipped my phone into my pocket. The restaurant was finally secure. I was in charge of the gas now, and Jake had no clue what I had planned. I went to the front window and looked out at the street. The sun was setting, making long orange shadows. In just 3 days, Jake would walk through that door expecting me to be gone forever. He would be waiting for a fiery explosion. He was planning to take my whole life and simply move on. But he was very, very wrong. October 28th was not going to be the day I died. It was going to be the day Jake Carson's whole world came crashing down. And I was the one who was going to set it all off. On Sunday night, October 27th, I sat alone in the restaurant office. I held my phone tightly, my stomach twisted in knots. Tomorrow was the day Jake planned to murder me, the day I would end this terrible dream. The restaurant is always closed on Sundays, so the dining room was completely dark and silent. The only sounds were the quiet hum of the kitchen fridge and the gentle ticking of a clock my grandmother put on the wall 30 years ago. A storm had arrived and rain was hitting the windows like thousands of little drums. I opened the Text Now app on my phone. I had installed it yesterday to get a temporary phone number that could not be traced. I had been using it to talk to Sarah without Jake finding out, but tonight it had a different purpose. I was going to use it to set a trap for my own sister. I looked at the blank message box, my thumb hovering over the screen, ready to type. This was it. This was how I would draw Maya into my plan. A tiny, foolish part of me wanted to just call her. It wanted to give her one last chance to get out, to tell her that Jake was just using her, that he would get rid of her as soon as she was not useful. I wanted to scream at her about his secret operation, the fake doctor's notes, and the texts where he made fun of her for wanting a baby, but I knew it was impossible. Maya had made her choice. She had chosen Jake. She chose to be with my husband. She chose to help him steal Rosa's kitchen from our family. And tomorrow she would finally have to face the consequences of that choice. I took one deep, shaky breath and started typing. The text had to sound exactly like it was from Jake. It needed his special mix of confidence and excitement. I had studied his texts for months. I knew his style. I typed, "Babe, Zoe is throwing a surprise anniversary party for me tomorrow. October 28th at 8 o'clock at night at the restaurant. She is trying hard to win me back. She even invited my mom and friends to put pressure on me. This is perfect for us. With all those people there, the accident will seem totally real. No one will ever figure it out. Just show up like a regular guest. Be sweet to Zoe. When it happens, after they leave around 10, we will both have perfect alibis. Do not text me back. Zoe is watching my every move. Just trust me, my love. We will be free after tomorrow. I love you." I read the message over 4 times, making sure every word was just right. The story had to be completely convincing. I had to make sure Maya would believe it. Then I hit send. The message went through. I set my phone down and stared at it, my heart pounding. What if she sees through the lie? What if she calls Jake to check? What if she decides not to come? I looked at the clock. It was 7:34 at night. I waited for 1 minute, then 2 minutes, then 5. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it so fast I almost dropped it. It was a message from Maya. "Okay, baby, I will be there. It will all be ours tomorrow, right?" Her text felt like a small splinter in my heart. It will all be ours. She really trusted him. She was convinced Jake loved her. She thought he would leave me for her. They would open their dream restaurant, Maya's Table. They were going to use the money from my family's restaurant to pay for their new life. She had no idea Jake had a surgery 5 years ago that made it impossible for him to have kids. She did not know he was lying about building a family with her. She was completely unaware that he would ditch her the second he got what he wanted. He was going to leave her with nothing at all. Even worse, he was planning to blame the whole thing on her. I typed a reply, still pretending to be Jake. "We will have everything, baby, I promise. I will see you then. Wear something nice and do not forget to act surprised when you show up." Her reply came instantly. "I will. I love you." I ended the call, wiped the chat history, and factory reset the phone. Sitting alone in the darkened office, I stared blankly, an emptiness consuming me. I felt no sense of victory, no cleverness at all. There was only a profound and heavy sadness, because tomorrow Maya would walk into Rose's kitchen believing her new life was starting. In reality, her entire world was about to collapse, but I could not allow that to stop me. Not now, not after everything Jake did to me. I stood up, slipped the phone into my pocket, and walked to the window. The rain fell steadily, smearing the headlights on Hawthorne Boulevard. Somewhere in the city, Jake was likely at home, sending messages to Maya. He was probably perfecting his story for the police about his wife's terrible accident. And elsewhere, Maya was on top of the world, thinking she had it all. But tomorrow, both of them would face the truth. The scene was set for tomorrow. I turned from the window, locked up the office, and drove home. My entire plan was now in motion. I had full command of the restaurant's gas line. All the evidence was secured in 3 different locations. My friend Sarah knew every last detail. The invitations were sent, and Maya had just confirmed she would be there. Tomorrow night, October 28th, at 8 o'clock, everyone I needed would be gathered in that restaurant. Before the evening was over, both Jake Carson and Maya Martinez would be in police custody. Everything was ready. Tomorrow, this would all be over. I was awake at exactly 6 o'clock on Monday morning, October 28th, and reached for my phone. I had no need for an alarm. I had no need for sleep. I had only managed to get 2 hours of it. This was the final day. I opened my gas control app and hit the big red button for an emergency shutdown. 2 miles from here, a valve inside Rose's kitchen audibly clicked shut and locked itself. There was not going to be a gas leak. There was not going to be an explosion. There was not going to be any tragic accident. Jake's monstrous plan was now completely neutralized. I got dressed in the dim light, putting on black jeans and a gray sweater. I carefully folded my grandmother's apron and placed it inside my bag. I drove through the quiet, rain-slicked streets of Portland and soon arrived at Rose's kitchen. I let myself in through the back door with my key. The restaurant was quiet and chilly. A faint smell of spices hung in the air like ghosts of dinners past. I turned on the lights, tied my grandmother's apron on, and got to work. I was not just cooking a meal today, I was preparing the case against him. There would be 7 courses, each representing one of 7 sins. These 7 pieces of evidence would lead to the complete downfall of Jake Carson. They would take away everything he had schemed to steal from me. I started with the menu. I wrote it out in chalk on a blackboard for the dining room. Course 1, bitter coffee for the poison he fed me. Course 2, the forged contract, a symbol of his deceit. Course 3, broken promises for the empty promise of a family. Course 4, the betrayal for his secret life with her. Course 5, the murder plot representing the plan to kill me. Course 6, ambition for his endless greed and his vision for Maya's table. And finally, Course 7, the truth to deliver the final justice. I stepped back to admire my handiwork. It was perfect. It was direct, cold, and exactly what the situation demanded. I then began to prepare the dishes. The first course was straightforward. I made a pot of coffee that was dark, intensely bitter, and strong. I poured a single cup and placed it on a tray. Next to the cup, I positioned a printed report from the medical lab. It confirmed Ipecac syrup detected, 15 milliliters per 250 milliliter sample. This was the poison Jake had been giving me each morning for 3 months. It was his slow-acting attempt to end my life. The second course was a simple salad of crisp greens, sharp vinegar dressing, and cheese. I placed it on a clear glass plate. Directly underneath the plate was the fraudulent business contract. My forged signature was plainly visible through the glass. The sale amount was $2.8 million. Marcus Brennan's name was printed clearly at the bottom. The third course was a salmon dish with a lemon sauce. It looked beautiful and refined, but the flavor was harsh. I set the plate down next to a printed hospital document of Jake's vasectomy. The procedure date was August 15th, 2019. This was 3 years before he proposed to me. It was 5 years before he told Maya he dreamed of having a family with her. The fourth course was a roasted lamb with herbs and garlic. I served this with a stack of printed text message conversations between Jake and Maya. One message said, "I love you, baby. Once this is over, we get everything." Maya's table is scheduled to open next spring. An entire 18 months of their lives were presented like a main course. The fifth course was the most challenging to create. I made a dish my grandmother showed me, chiles en nogada. It is a poblano pepper stuffed with spiced meat covered in a creamy white walnut sauce and topped with pomegranate seeds. This dish is a true labor of love that requires many hours of preparation. It demands immense patience and focus. I served it beside a printed transcript from a hidden camera. Jake's voice was recorded with perfect clarity. He said, "I just need you to open the valve enough to create a slow leak. I will make sure she is the only person in the kitchen. Then you can hear Rick Donovan's voice." He said, "If somebody dies, Jake, they will have no way to connect it back to you." Course 6 was a tres leches cake. It was my grandmother's personal recipe. She taught me how to prepare it when I was only 8 years old. I placed a slice next to a printed email from Marcus Brennan to Jake. It read, "As soon as the power of attorney is signed, we can close the sale of Rose's Kitchen. Wire the $2.8 million and you can begin your new life with M in Seattle. Maya's table will be ready by the third quarter of 2025. The seventh and final course consisted of just one square of dark chocolate on an immaculate white plate. It was served with nothing else. It represented the unadorned, bitter truth. I spent the entire morning arranging and taking pictures of each course. I wanted duplicate copies of every piece of evidence just to be safe. At noon, Carmen Foster arrived in a van full of catering equipment. She brought in electric warmers, serving platters, and more dishes. She had even cooked some of the food at her own place to help me out. Besides Sarah, Carmen was the only other person who knew the real plan for the evening. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. She set a tray of warm empanadas down on the kitchen counter. "I have been ready since February," I answered. She gave a simple nod and said nothing more. That is one of the many qualities I admire in her. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, each and every course was prepared. I covered them all and stored them in the walk-in cooler. Then I moved to the dining room. I placed a large, ornate screen at the head of the room. I positioned a projector on a small table and connected my laptop. I went through the presentation I had put together last week. It contained crime scene images, email threads, and bank statements. It also featured the video of Jake's meeting with Rick Donovan. It was all the evidence needed to ensure his downfall. At 3 o'clock, Sarah Morgan came by. She was not on her shift, dressed in jeans and a jacket, but I could still see the police badge attached to her belt. Are you all right? She asked. I am fine. Jake has no clue what is coming for him. She nodded. I will get here at 7:45. I will take a table in the back and act like a normal customer. If anything happens, I am only 2 seconds away. Everything will go according to plan, I assured her. She looked at me closely for a moment. Then she gave my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. Your grandmother would be so proud of the woman you have become. I was too overwhelmed to speak, so I just nodded. At 5 o'clock, I started setting the tables. I prepared 15 settings with white tablecloths, candles, and name cards. I placed Jake's card at the head of the main table. Maya's card went to his right and Marcus Brennan's to his left. I placed my own card at the far end of the table, directly across from him. This was the seat of power. At 6 o'clock, I displayed the chalkboard menu. The menu detailed 7 courses to represent 7 sins. At 6:30, I changed into a simple black dress. I put my hair up and wore the silver earrings my grandmother gave me. I saw a different person in the reflection. This woman looked older, stronger, and was absolutely prepared. At 7 o'clock, I began to light the candles. The dining room was filled with a gentle, warm light. It was as lovely as a painting, but it was also a perfectly set trap. Standing in the doorway, I took a final look around the room, the tables, the projector, the evidence, and the food. I had everything required to finally end this nightmare. My phone vibrated with a text from Jake. I am on my way. See you soon, baby. I did not reply. A moment later, another text arrived from Maya. I am almost there. I am nervous, but also excited. I managed a cold, faint smile. She had every right to be nervous. At 7:30, I opened a bottle of wine. I poured one glass that I did not intend to drink. I just held it, feeling its weight in my hand. Everything was perfectly in position. The dinner party was set to begin. But Jake had no idea he was the main dish on tonight's menu. Before I reveal what happened on October 28th, the night justice was finally served. Type the word truth below. This lets me know that you are prepared. What you are about to hear is truly shocking. A quick note. I have altered some details for clarity. If you find difficult stories upsetting, now might be the time to leave. Rose's kitchen was dimly lit by the glow of 24 candles. Their flames flickered in the October breeze from a nearby open window. I stood by the host station. For tonight, I had chosen a deep burgundy dress. The dress was meant to show elegance and confidence. It was the dress of a woman who was fully in control. The air carried the scent of roasted garlic and fresh basil. I could also smell sweet, caramelized onions drifting from the kitchen. I had just spent 3 hours preparing a 5-course meal no one would ever forget. My hands were perfectly still. I smoothed the white linen tablecloth for the last time. I adjusted the single red rose in its vase. I checked my phone. The screen read 7:58 in the evening. In just 2 minutes, my first guest was due to arrive. The trap I had carefully planned for 8 months was about to be sprung. The door opened at exactly 8:05. Jake walked in. His broad shoulders seemed to fill the entire doorway. He offered a warm, familiar smile, but it was a complete lie. He was wearing the charcoal gray suit I had bought him for our first anniversary. He always said it made him feel powerful. He came over and wrapped me in an embrace. He kissed my forehead with the same false affection he showed on our wedding day. Happy anniversary, sweetheart, he murmured into my hair. His voice was soft and intimate. I forced a smile and leaned against him. I needed to play the part of the loving wife just one last time. My fingers located my phone in my pocket, where the remote gas shut-off application was already open. Maya arrived at 8:10 in the evening. Her red hair was styled in an elegant knot. Her emerald green dress was chosen to capture Jake's attention. She paused in the entryway, pretending to be surprised. Zoe, you asked me to come, she said. Her voice was light, as if we were simply old friends. I was just planning to stop by and say hello. I smiled back at her, but my smile had no warmth. Of course I invited you, Maya. You are family after all. Her eyes darted toward Jake before she quickly looked away. At 8:15, Marcus Brennan made his entrance. His silver hair was perfectly coiffed. He was dressed in a flawless navy blue suit. He shook Jake's hand firmly, like a close business associate. Jake, it is wonderful to see you, Marcus said smoothly, clapping his shoulder. Zoe, thank you for the invitation. Your grandmother's restaurant is a true landmark. I offered a simple, polite nod in return. I noticed Jake's smile tighten just a little. His eyes followed Marcus to his seat with the intense focus of a predator eyeing a rival. Jake's mother, Linda Carson, arrived at 8:20. Her silver hair was styled in gentle waves. She wore a lavender blouse and a pearl necklace, appearing as a picture of perfect grace. She gave me a warm hug, and her familiar floral perfume enveloped me. My dear daughter-in-law, she said with genuine warmth, I am so very proud of you both. 2 years have passed already. Time flies when you are in love. I held her embrace a bit too long, feeling a pang of guilt because she was unaware of her son's actions. At 8:25 in the evening, Detective Sarah Morgan walked in, dressed in a simple black blazer and jeans, her badge concealed in her purse. She hugged me and shot me a knowing glance. Zoe, it has been too long, she announced loud enough for everyone to hear. I am so glad you invited me to celebrate with you. I gave her hand a brief squeeze, a silent signal that her role tonight was as a witness, not a guest. Over the next 15 minutes, the final 10 guests arrived in steady succession. My Aunt Carmen appeared at 8:28 in the evening, still in her nurse's scrubs from her shift at Providence Hospital. My cousin Mateo and his wife Isabella came at 8:32 in the evening. Their 2-year-old daughter Anna was sleeping soundly in her mother's arms. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, an elderly couple who were regulars at Rosa's kitchen for 20 years, showed up at 8:36 carrying wine and offering warm smiles. Father Miguel from Our Lady of Sorrows, the priest who had married Jake and me, came at 8:40. He brought a blessing for our anniversary and a small prayer book. Jenny, my best friend from culinary school, arrived at 8:43 in the evening. As always, she had her camera hanging around her neck. Finally, my lawyer, Benjamin Hartley, entered at 8:47 in the evening. His quiet presence served as a promise that tonight's words would be recorded and legally binding. By 8:50 in the evening, all 15 guests were seated at the long dining table, their faces glowing in the candlelight. The sounds of their conversation and laughter filled the room with a false sense of peace. I stood at the head of the table, lifted my wine glass, and waited for the room to quiet down. Thank you all for joining me tonight, I began, my voice steady and clear. 2 years ago, in front of many of you, Jake and I promised to love and cherish each other for all time. Tonight, I wanted to honor that promise in the company of our most important people. I paused, looking at each person around the table. I saw Jake's confident grin, Maya's emotionless expression, Marcus Brennan's polite curiosity, Linda Carson's proud smile, and Sarah Morgan's watchful eyes. They all sat in anticipation, completely unaware of the storm that was about to break. I have prepared a very special menu for all of you this evening, I announced, my voice full of warmth. It features 5 courses, each from a recipe in my grandmother Rose's personal cookbook, but I have something else to share with all of you. It is a story about trust, betrayal, and the great lengths people will go to protect what they love. I noticed Jake's smile falter for a second. I saw his hand tighten around his wine glass, and I knew he sensed that something was wrong. I set my glass down, walked toward the kitchen door, and gestured to the first course waiting on the counter. It was a simple dish of heirloom tomato bruschetta with a balsamic reduction and fresh basil. The first course is on its way, I said, turning back to face my guests, and with it comes the first chapter of tonight's story. I looked at Jake from across the table, holding his gaze for a long, silent moment before I smiled. I think you will all find it very enlightening. By 8:55 that evening on October 28, 2024, all 15 guests were seated around the long, candlelit table in Rosa's kitchen. Their faces were full of joy for the celebration. I stood at the head of the table holding a silver tray, knowing the next 35 minutes would shatter every bit of happiness in the room. I set a white porcelain coffee cup directly in front of Jake, steam gently rising from it, and I began to speak. For 3 months, for 90 consecutive days, my husband made me coffee every morning, I stated, my voice firm and loud. He played the part of a kind, loving spouse, but he conveniently forgot to mention that each cup contained 15 milliliters of ipecac syrup, a substance that makes you violently ill. I pulled a folded report from my pocket and held it up for everyone to see. It was from the Providence Medical Lab, dated February 19, 2024. It confirmed I was being systematically poisoned with ipecac. Jake had been deliberately making me sick, hoping I would become too weak to challenge his schemes. Jake's face went pale as he gripped the table, but I did not allow him to interrupt. I moved to a laptop and projected the first email onto the wall for all to see. The second truth is about theft, I announced clearly. This email is from Marcus Brennan to Jake on November 3rd, 2023. It reads, "The transfer will be complete 90 days after you secure power of attorney. Ensure she is too ill to contest." I then displayed Jake's reply from January 22nd, 2024. "The Ipecac is working perfectly. She is losing weight and can barely function in the kitchen. We will have everything by April." I looked straight at Marcus, whose face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "You made an offer of $2.8 million for my family's restaurant, Mr. Brennan. You were gambling on the belief that I would never uncover your plot." Marcus shot up from his chair, but Sarah Morgan moved forward from the doorway, her hand resting on her concealed badge. "Please sit down," she said calmly. "You will not be going anywhere." I clicked a button, and the screen split to show two separate medical reports. "The third truth concerns the lies Jake told my own sister," I said, turning to face a very confused Maya. I showed both reports. The first was a forged fertility document from a fake clinic which claimed Jake had a low sperm count. The second was his actual medical file from August 15th, 2019. It proved he had undergone a vasectomy 5 years earlier. I let a heavy silence hang in the air. "That clinic is not real, Maya. Jake fabricated that document to string you along. He could not have a child with you because he never intended to." Tears filled Maya's eyes as she stared at Jake in utter disbelief. "Is this true?" she whispered. Jake said nothing. His jaw was clenched so tightly I could see the muscle throbbing. My next piece of evidence was a series of photographs. They showed Jake and Maya kissing, holding hands, and embracing outside a bar. "I hired a private investigator to take these pictures over the last 6 months," I explained. "My husband was having an affair with my sister right under my own roof." Linda Carson gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as she looked at the photos. "Jacob," she said, her voice filled with anguish, "how could you ever do such a thing?" Jake finally spoke, his words low and frantic. "Mom, it is not what it looks like. Zoe is making all of this up." I cut him off. "Am I really?" I then played an audio file from my computer, and Jake's own voice filled the silent room. "I need you to do a job for me, Rick. Go to Rose's kitchen, find the gas line on the stove. Just loosen it a little so there is a small leak. Nobody will notice the smell, but when that stove gets lit..." A different voice then asked with distrust, "Are you telling me to cause an explosion?" Jake's answer was bone-chilling. "I am telling you to cause an accident. I will give you $5,000 in cash. Do it on October 28th after 8 in the evening." Once the recording was over, I held up my phone to show an app that could remotely shut off the gas. "The fifth truth is that he tried to murder me," I said. "Jake hired Rick Donovan to rig this kitchen tonight. He intended for this restaurant to blow up at 8 o'clock, killing me and everyone here, even his own mother." Linda collapsed into her chair, sobbing, and Aunt Carmen rushed to help her. Jake leaped to his feet, his face red with anger. "I did not want anyone else to be hurt," he screamed. "It was only meant for..." He stopped, but it was too late. He had confessed. I revealed my final piece of evidence, a text Jake sent to Maya on October 1st. "The sixth truth," I stated, "is about pure greed." Jake had texted Maya, "After Zoe is gone, we can open our own restaurant. Maya's table, just the two of us." Her reply was, "I am so excited. I love you." Maya covered her face with her hands and began to shake. I put my phone down on the table. "And the seventh truth," my voice now cold as ice, "is justice." Sarah Morgan stepped forward. The badge on her belt was now visible to everyone. Her face was grim. "Jacob Carson, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and solicitation of arson," she declared. "Marcus Brennan, you are under arrest as an accessory to fraud." She pulled out handcuffs and secured Jake's wrists. He was frozen, his face completely white. Another detective, James Torres, entered and handcuffed Marcus. "You have the right to remain silent," Sarah said, reading him his rights. "Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law." I watched as they led Jake away at 9:28 in the evening on October 28th, 2024. He looked utterly defeated. A great weight was lifted from me. It was not a victory, but a relief that justice was being served. Maya was still weeping at the table. Linda Carson grasped my hand. Her eyes were swollen and red. "Zoe, I am so sorry," she whispered. "I never suspected." I squeezed her hand back. "I know, Linda. This is not on you." The door latched behind Jake and Marcus at 9:30 at night. The only sound was Maya's soft crying. I looked around at all of my guests. They were shocked and saddened, but every single one was safe. "It is over," I said quietly to myself. "It is all finally done." At 9:35 that night, just 5 minutes later, Detective Sarah Morgan stood in the kitchen. It was October 28th, 2024. Her badge shined as she addressed the stunned guests still in their seats. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah said, her voice calm and controlled. Tonight you witnessed the conclusion of an 8-month investigation into fraud, attempted murder, and poisoning. Please remain seated while we secure the premises. She looked at Jake, cuffed and furious. Jacob Carson, you are facing multiple charges. The first is attempted murder. You planned a gas leak to kill your wife and 14 other people. The second is poisoning. You administered ipecac syrup for 90 days beginning November 15th, 2023 and ending February 14th, 2024. Third, you are charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. You falsified documents to try and steal Rose's Kitchen, a business valued at $2.8 million. Fourth, you are charged with solicitation of arson and murder. This is for hiring Rick Donovan on February 27th, 2024, and offering him $5,000 to sabotage the gas line. And fifth, identity fraud for creating fake medical records from a clinic that does not exist. Sarah read the charges calmly. Each one seemed to land like a blow on Jake. His fury dissolved into fear. This is all a lie, Jake shouted, his voice breaking. Zoe set me up. She framed me. Sarah's expression did not change. Mr. Carson, we have a recording of you arranging the gas leak. We have emails between you and Marcus Brennan about the poison and the fraud. We also have lab results, a handwriting analysis, a sworn statement from your wife's lawyer, and a video from your home office. She paused for a moment. You framed yourself. She then turned to Marcus, who was silent beside Jake. His hair was a mess and his fine suit was creased. Marcus Brennan, you are charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, being an accessory to attempted murder, and racketeering. These charges are for helping Jacob Carson try to steal Rose's Kitchen using fake papers and threats. Your emails with Mr. Carson between October 10th, 2023 and January 22nd, 2024 confirm your intent. By the wall, Maya was shaking with tears on her cheeks. She was not under arrest, but she was terrified. Sarah walked over to her, speaking in a kind but firm tone. Maya Martinez, on October 27th, 2024 at 7:30 in the evening, you received a text message. It was from Jake. He asked you to be here to serve as his alibi for a deadly explosion. Is that correct? Maya nodded, whispering, yes. He said Zoe was having a party and he wanted me to be here. He said we could be together. He claimed it would look like an accident and no one would know. I thought he was only talking about a simple divorce. I did not know he would try to hurt her. Sarah studied her. Did you know he was poisoning her? Maya shook her head frantically. No, I promise I did not. I knew he was seeing me and wanted to leave Zoe, but I never imagined he would do something so horrible. Sarah pulled out a small recorder. Maya, I want to present you with an option. If you give your full cooperation to the Portland police and the prosecutor, and if you testify against Jake Carson and Marcus Brennan, we will offer you leniency. Any more evidence you can provide about their actions will result in fewer charges and a shorter sentence. Do you understand me? Maya turned to me, her eyes red and pleading. Zoe, please, she whispered. I am so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I really thought he loved me. I stood perfectly still with my arms folded, my face an unreadable mask. I had no words for her. At 9:42 that night, Detective James Torres came in the back door. He was with two forensic technicians carrying large black equipment cases. Sarah, we are ready to process the scene, he said. Sarah gestured to a nearby table. Bag the laptop, the coffee cup next to Mr. Carson, and Miss Martinez's phone with the gas control app. Also, collect the papers she gave us. I need the gas valve behind the stove photographed and collected as evidence. The engineer for the remote system has provided a sworn affidavit confirming Rick Donovan's sabotage. One tech began taking photos of the table, laptop, and valve. The other placed each item into labeled evidence bags. Torres walked over to Jake and pulled a card from his pocket. Mr. Carson, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney before we ask you questions and to have one with you during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you. If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you still have the right to stop at any time. Now that you have been advised of your rights, are you willing to talk to me without a lawyer? Jake just stared back at him, his jaw clenched, and did not say a word. At 9:50 that evening, Sarah and Torres formally led Jake and Marcus out the front entrance. Maya followed in handcuffs, still crying softly. She had already agreed to cooperate and signed a witness statement. As they reached the door, Jake looked back at me one last time. You are going to regret this, Zoe, he threatened, his voice low and filled with hate. You call this a victory, but you have ruined everything. I met his gaze without blinking. No, Jake, I answered calmly. You are the one who ruined everything. I simply held you accountable. The door closed behind them at 9:53 in the evening and the room grew quiet. Linda Carson was at the table crying on Aunt Carmen's shoulder. Father Miguel whispered a quiet prayer. Benjamin Hartley walked up to me and put a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, Zoe, he said. All I could do was nod, unable to form words. For the first time in 8 months, the awful pressure in my chest began to ease. On December 18th, 2024, 7 weeks and 3 days after Jake's arrest, I was finally free. I sat in the front row of courtroom 412 in downtown Portland, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. My coat was buttoned up against the chill of winter. I watched Judge Margaret Whitmore enter, her black robe trailing her and her face a stern, unreadable mask. The trial had dragged on for 3 weeks, from November 27th to December 16th. Today was the day we would hear the verdict. The room was full. Reporters from the city papers stood in the back, ready to write. My lawyer, Benjamin Hartley, sat beside me, his briefcase on the floor. A few rows behind us sat detectives Sarah Morgan and James Torres, but my husband Jake's mother, Linda Carson, was not present. She had publicly disowned him on November 30th. Judge Whitmore adjusted her glasses and looked at the three defendants. This court is prepared to deliver the sentences for Jacob Michael Carson, Marcus James Brennan, and Maya Elena Martinez, she said, her voice firm. Mr. Carson, would you please rise? Jake stood up from his seat. The bright orange of his prison uniform was a shocking contrast to his usual designer suits. His face was pale and gaunt after 2 months behind bars. Judge Whitmore looked down from her high bench. Jacob Michael Carson, a jury has found you guilty on multiple charges. These include attempted first-degree murder and aggravated assault by poisoning. You are also guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, arson for hire, and identity theft. The evidence against you was undeniable. We reviewed phone recordings, emails, and toxicology reports. We examined fraudulent documents and heard from numerous witnesses, including Maya Martinez. It is clear you spent months plotting to poison your wife, steal her business, and then kill her. You arranged an explosion that would have also taken the lives of 14 other people. The judge paused, allowing her words to hang in the silent room. This court views your actions as one of the most severe cases of domestic violence and financial abuse it has ever seen. You showed a complete disregard for human life. For these crimes, you are sentenced to 12 years in the Oregon State Penitentiary. You will be ineligible for parole for the first 8 years. Upon your release, you will have 5 years of supervised probation. You are also ordered to pay restitution of $500,000 to Mrs. Zoe Martinez. This payment will be funded by the sale of your assets, including your car and all personal investments. Your rights to Rose's Kitchen are hereby terminated, with full ownership restored to Mrs. Martinez. Jake's lawyer began to mention an appeal, but Jake remained silent. His shoulders slumped as a bailiff led him away. Next, Judge Whitmore turned her attention to Marcus. Mr. Brennan, please stand. Marcus got to his feet. His silver hair was perfectly in place, his expression unreadable. Marcus James Brennan, you are guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud and of being an accomplice to attempted murder. You conspired with Jacob Carson to unlawfully take control of Rosie's Kitchen. You used intimidation, forged documents, and took advantage of Mrs. Martinez's declining health, which was caused by the poisoning. Your email correspondence with Mr. Carson from October 2023 to January 2024 shows the depth of your involvement in this plot. You are sentenced to 8 years in the Oregon State Penitentiary, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. For 15 years after your release, you are forbidden from owning or operating any restaurant in the state of Oregon. Cascade Dining Group has already terminated your employment and severed all ties with you. The court notes the company's full cooperation throughout this investigation. Finally, the judge turned to Maya. She sat with her hands folded, her red hair pulled back in a bun. Her eyes were swollen and red from crying. Miss Martinez, please stand. Maya stood unsteadily, and her attorney placed a reassuring hand on her arm. Maya Elena Martinez, you have pleaded guilty to being an accessory after the fact and to obstruction of justice. The court acknowledges your complete cooperation with law enforcement, which began on the night of October 28th. Your testimony against both Mr. Carson and Mr. Brennan was indispensable. We also accept that you were unaware of the lethal extent of Mr. Carson's plan. However, you engaged in an affair with your sister's husband. You accepted money from their criminal activities, and you agreed to provide an alibi for what you believed was a minor crime. These actions show a profound failure of judgment and a lack of moral character. Your sentence is 2 years of supervised probation. You must also complete 400 hours of community service within the first year. You are ordered to attend mandatory counseling sessions twice a month for the duration of your probation. You are forbidden from all contact with Mrs. Zoe Martinez unless she provides her consent in writing. Maya nodded, and as tears streamed down her face, she whispered, "Thank you, Your Honor." As the judge's gavel fell, the courtroom began to empty. I stayed seated for a moment, just staring at the empty bench. Even in victory, I felt a deep sense of loss. Sarah came over and sat down beside me. "Zoe, you won," she said softly. "Justice was served. Now you can finally start to move forward." I nodded slowly. "I know, it just doesn't feel the way I thought it would." She gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze. "It rarely does. What matters is that you survived." As we stood to leave, Benjamin handed me a sealed envelope. "This came for you yesterday," he explained. "It's from Maya." I waited until I was back in my own apartment that night to open it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Zoe, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I was foolish, selfish, and blind to the truth. I will live with what I've done for the rest of my life. I am truly sorry." I folded the letter, put it away, and never wrote back. Jake was in prison. Marcus's career was over. Maya had lost her family. I had my restaurant again. I was safe and I had gotten justice. But I had lost the sister I thought I knew. I lost the husband I once cherished. And I lost the ability to trust that the people I loved would not try to destroy me. The sun rose over the ocean at 6:15 in the morning on May 15th, 2025. It lit up the sand at Cannon Beach as I walked near Haystack Rock. I clutched my grandmother Rosa's old recipe book to my chest. Its leather cover was soft and worn from decades of use. The pages were marked with flour and spice stains, telling the story of the woman who taught me that cooking was about more than just food. It was about resilience. It was about pouring love into something, even when life tries to take everything away. I had woken up at 4:30 that Sunday morning. A deep need had pulled me to this place, a 90-minute drive from my home in Portland. My grandmother Rosa used to bring me here as a little girl whenever I was upset. She would take my hand, gaze at the water, and say, "The ocean washes everything away. No matter how deep the hurt, the tide always comes back, and life goes on." 6 months had passed since a judge sentenced Jake to 12 years and Marcus Brennan to 8. 6 months since Maya received 2 years of probation for her testimony. 6 months since I walked out of that courtroom feeling hollow, wondering if justice could ever mend a broken heart. But I did what Rosa would have done. I began to rebuild. The $850,000 she left me, along with the $500,000 from Jake's restitution, was more than just a financial lifeline. It was the tool I needed to fix the damage he had done. I paid off every single debt for Rosa's kitchen. That included the fraudulent loans Marcus had Jake force me to sign. I hired a construction team to give the restaurant new, warm, and inviting walls. We expanded our seating from 25 to 40. We installed a state-of-the-art kitchen to replace the one Jake had ruined. A local artist painted a beautiful mural of Rosa on our back wall, her hands forever dusted with flour, her smile captured for all time. But the most important change was one that no one could see. In February, I established the Rosa Heritage Fund. It is a foundation that provides grants of up to $20,000 to women who are escaping abusive relationships. We help them launch their own businesses in the food industry. The fund also provides legal support, business mentorship, and a network of supportive female entrepreneurs in Oregon. We awarded our first 3 grants in March. The recipients were starting a bakery, a catering service, and a food truck. Hearing them talk about their dreams brought tears to my eyes for the first time in a very long time. They were tears of joy, not sorrow. We had the grand reopening of Rose's Kitchen on April 8th. The new menu featured my grandmother's classic recipes alongside new dishes I developed over the winter. My Aunt Carmen came on as my new business partner. She invested her own money and brought her background in nursing to help create a healthy work environment. Soon after, Portland Monthly magazine published an article about us. Then, the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association gave us a nomination for Best Family Restaurant of 2025. But even with the awards, the full dining room, and the glowing reviews, a part of me still felt fractured. There was one wound that simply refused to heal. A week ago, on the night of May 8th, I was closing the restaurant around 9 o'clock. Then I spotted Maya across the street. Her red hair was tied back and her hands were tucked into her pockets. She did not try to approach me. For a full 10 minutes, she just stood there. Her eyes scanned the glowing windows, the cheerful patrons, and the large painting of Rosa. Then she turned and walked away. The next morning, I discovered white roses and a card on my doorstep. It read, Zoe, I am not expecting your forgiveness. I just want you to know that I regret my actions every single day. I brought the flowers inside and read the card over and over, but I never replied. I was not prepared to. Perhaps I never would be. Some betrayals cut too deep to ever truly heal. This is true even if the one who hurt you was a victim too. The ocean water washed over my feet as my phone buzzed. It was a message from a woman named Elena Ramirez. I opened it and began to read under the bright sun. The message said, My name is Elena Ramirez and I am 29 years old. I just left a painful marriage with my 7-year-old daughter. We lost everything. A women's shelter in Portland mentioned your Rosa Heritage Fund. My lifelong dream is to become a professional chef. I saw on your website that you are looking for kitchen help. I do not have a lot of experience, but I am a quick learner and will work harder than anyone. Her message ended with a single simple question. Would you be willing to give me a chance? A feeling of warmth and direction grew in my heart as I reread her words. I responded immediately. Elena, it would be my honor. Please come to Rosa's kitchen this Monday at 10 in the morning. We can start this new chapter together. After sending the message, I looked at Haystack Rock standing strong against the endless waves. I thought of Jake in prison, Marcus losing his fortune, and Maya living with her choices. I thought of how they nearly ruined my life and my restaurant. Then I considered Elena, my Aunt Carmen, and all the people who found a second home at Rosa's kitchen. I opened my grandmother Rosa's recipe book to the note she wrote inside. Never let anyone steal your dreams. As I touched her handwriting, I could almost hear her saying that life, like the ocean, always moves forward. I had not forgiven Maya, and I knew a part of me never could. But I was finally forgiving myself for trusting people who hurt me. I was forgiving myself for not recognizing the truth right in front of me. Rosa's kitchen was now so much more than a restaurant. It had become a safe place. It was living proof that women like Elena and me could endure the worst and still build something beautiful. I made a quiet promise to always protect what my grandmother created. It was about more than her recipes. It was about the hope we offered women needing a fresh start. The sun started to rise, filling the sky with stunning colors. For the first time in a very long year, I felt a deep sense of peace. The pain was still there, but my life now had a clear and powerful meaning. I tucked the cookbook under my arm and walked back to my car. I was ready to go home, ready for Monday, and completely ready for whatever came next. I need you to hear this. God revealed the truth to me 3 times before October 28th, with the lab results, the hidden recording, and Maya's confession. Each time I chose to respond with logic instead of rage. When betrayal comes from your own family, it causes the deepest kind of pain. But please remember, God gives us more than the strength to get through it. He provides the clarity to see our own path forward. I pursued legal justice instead of personal revenge. I chose this path not to destroy Jake and Marcus, but to ensure they could never harm another woman again. Please learn from my experience. I was far too trusting and overlooked every warning sign. I thought love was all the protection I needed. Betrayal from a loved one does not arrive with a loud warning. It slips in quietly through something as small as a coffee cup or a forged document. It hides behind the charming smile of someone who calls you a sweet name while plotting your ruin. If you feel in your heart that something is wrong, I urge you to listen. That feeling is there to protect you. The moment you dismiss that inner voice, you open yourself up to being hurt. So here is my advice. Protect your finances, document everything, and never allow love to make you careless. Getting even might feel good for a moment, but true justice lets you rest at night. It is watching the truth prevail in court. Above all, when your world is shattered by people you love, rebuilding is not about forgetting. It is about transforming your pain into your purpose. Rosa's kitchen serves more than just meals now. It serves hope, and I am certain that was God's plan for me the whole time. If my story resonated with you, I would be very grateful if you shared your own story of betrayal in the comments. Please subscribe for more true stories of survival and share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they can get through this. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Your time is a precious gift. Please be aware the stories shared here may contain some fictional elements for educational purposes. If you would prefer a different kind of story, please feel free to explore the other videos on our channel. Stay safe, stay strong, and always remember you are not as isolated as the betrayal wants you to feel.